I saw something the other day that really affected me. It was a discussion about whether we care too much for dogs. The truth is, a dog has really changed my life. What it was a clip by a person called Black Belt Barrister, and I started watching it and I could hardly believe what I was seeing. It was a clip about the BBC. To me, it seemed like it was trying to start some narrative, trying to suggest to people that we should start to become less animal friendly, in this case particularly dogs. I'm not going to show you the clip here because, being new on this platform, I don't know what exactly constitutes copyright, etc. So if you want to see this clip, I mean, maybe you have seen it now because I think it's gaining quite a bit of interest from what I gather. But if you want to see the clip, go to Black Barrister, his channel, and check it out. Maybe he can put these items up because, being a barrister, he knows what he can do and what he can't do. And strangely enough, I did start watching more of his stuff on there, and I was learning quite a lot. It's quite an eye-opener. But going back to this particular clip, I did find it really, really distressing. It seems to be, I don't know, it's almost like they're trying to pave the way to start some kind of campaign about reducing the rights of animals, particularly dogs. And it is completely, the thought of that is completely alien to me. Britain has long been known as a country of animal lovers. On the whole, most British people are animal lovers. Dogs have been a massive part of British society for a lot longer than the BBC's been around. I mean, you've only got to see how dogs are used in the police, in the military, how even support dogs, how they make people feel. We have guide dogs. I mean, we are a country, a dog-loving country. Well, take Winston Churchill, for example, his famous fat little dog. But it doesn't appear that the rest of the world shares these views. And when you visit another country, you can see the difference, and it's quite upsetting when you do visit other countries and you see how animals are treated and how dogs are treated, and it's quite heartbreaking, really. But then you come back to Britain and you think, at least there's something we do, something that means a lot to us, and that is our animals, our dogs, our cats, all pets. Even rabbits and mice, they're all comforting in their own way. And watching this clip that the BBC have put out, which to me seems to be a precursor to something, some kind of campaign they're about to launch. I mean, I also did spot on one of the channels that people were complaining about not being able to go out and enjoy the countryside because they don't like dogs, and they seem to think that because they don't like dogs, it should affect us all, and that nobody should be allowed to take the dogs outside. And this just seems wrong, because how can you say to British people, or even try and convince British people, that dogs are a problem? As you know, a few years ago, there was a bit of a challenge for the world. And again, I'm not going to mention it by name or talk about it, because for some reason or another, this is considered a hot, debatable issue that I think creates problems on YouTube. At least that's what I gather reading between the lines. So I'll just refer to it as a government applied extended holiday. Now, prior to this, I had a great social life. I met a lot of people. As a professional photographer, I was always out and about, new shoots, new challenges, and it was great to get out there, meet all these new people, and I had staff. So basically, week by week, day by day, I had a social life, a good social life in essence, because I was constantly, interacting with staff, interacting with people on shoots. So my life was quite fulfilled. When everybody was allowed to go back to work, I thought I would be able to restart my business in photography. I thought that I could rebuild it again. I'd built it up once, and so I didn't really see it going to be a problem to build it back up again. But I was so wrong. I gradually learnt that there was less and less work available. I didn't really understand why there was so much, why there'd been this big drop in work. It was only when I started looking at YouTube and learning more about AI that things began to click into place. And I felt a bit isolated because here I was, I had no staff anymore, so I had no daily interaction with staff members. I mean, I say staff members, but over the years we'd become friends, and all the shoots we did together, they were just so entertaining. It was a real good fun going out working. I never really considered it work. I mean, we went out there, we took on the challenges, we did the shoots, and we made sure that the clients were happy. And at the end of the day, seeing their smiling faces and they were happy, it did mean a lot to us. But all that sort of camaraderie had now gone. I had no staff. They'd moved on to new things. And so that was just one element of it. And of course, the other element was, whilst out shooting, was always meeting different people, different challenges, different requests, some crazy requests. I mean, even some crazy people, but crazy people make the world go round. And so all of that social life I found had disappeared. So for months after trying to restart my business with no real connections, and gradually as time went by, less and less interaction with people, I did start to feel more isolated and more lonely. I was in front of the computer trying to figure out how to get work. So things weren't good, and I think I was mentally spiralling down into, I don't know. I don't want to use the word depression because I think that that's quite a serious statement. I think maybe spiralling down into loneliness, upset, not really knowing what to do, struggling, quite stressful. And as I was looking around on the internet, a website came up. I can't remember exactly how I got there, but it had rescue dogs on it, and I was just scrolling through them, and then one just caught my attention, and I don't know, I just clicked on the link and then sent an email. It was quite a, little heartwarming story, discovered in a dried up riverbed, starving, would anybody be interested to look after me? And so I sent an email off, and the next day I got a telephone call, and it was from a lady, and she was calling about this particular dog. And turns out she was actually in Spain, and it didn't mention any of that on the website. I often wonder if that would have affected things. There was just something about this image, just something that drew me to this dog, and it was, I don't know, it was probably, they say these things are meant to be. But the lady, she'd found the dog. She was driving back towards her home in Murcia, and there was a dog limping across the road, so she stopped and went to see if it was okay. So she followed it down into this dry riverbed, and there she found that that dog was obviously a mother dog, and there was 3 young sort of, pups with her, and she could see they was all thin and terrified. And so every day after that, she went back every day, and that's a 30-mile drive, and she went back to take them food, and she'd put food out for them and feed them every day. And after a few weeks, they were confident enough to get close to her, so she managed to catch them. She took them in a car back home, where she looked after them for a while, and she advertised them on this website because she thought that they were good enough dogs that they didn't need a second chance. And so this is how I made first contact. And what you have to look at here, going back to Britain and Britain's love for animals, particularly dogs, is the fact that this lady, she put them on a website aiming at British people. So it's almost a known thing that British people love their dogs and look after their dogs. So the only thought she had was, well, I'll see if there's anyone in Britain who wants to help these dogs. And to cut a long story short, I booked a cheap Ryanair flight, £40, about £49 I think, there and back, and hopped on a plane and went over to Murcia. The lady picked me up from the airport and took me back to her place. So she said I could stay there a couple of days once I got to know this dog. And so I spent a couple of days there, and what was mostly apparent was these dogs were so thin. Well, they was getting a bit fatter now because she was feeding them, obviously. But even so, when I was there, they were still thin, but only just building up. And the state they were in when she got them were just skin and bones. And these dogs were very, very nervous. They would sort of come at dinner time, they'd come rushing up because they wanted the food. But if you had to sit down, because if you made a sudden movement, they would sort of like look frightened and back off. So you can only imagine what they'd been through and how they felt. And this lady was probably the first lady who'd shown them any real care and affection. They did go up to her quite easily, but I always knew there, and they were still cautious. So they would approach the bowl. I'd sit down, they'd approach the bowl very carefully and and as they ate, they would be glancing up, just watching what he's doing. If he made a slight movement, they'd sort of like move back, ready to run away. So it was heartbreaking in a way to think that these animals were so frightened that they'd been through. I mean, their puppyhood, for example, they spent their puppyhood in a dry riverbed. We do know a bit of the history because some of the locals told us, what had happened, the fact that the farmer had come along and just abandoned them, thrown them out into this dry riverbed when there was just 3 little pups and the mother. And so we do know what they went through. Now, can you imagine a puppy's life just scratching around trying to make a living in a dry riverbed? I mean, I suppose animals are supposed to be able to survive in nature, but dogs, they're domesticated and they've they've lost quite a bit of their natural instincts. So it is hard for them, but harder still is to see them like that, and the fact that people in other countries just don't seem to care. But anyhow, I spent a few days there, and what I did realise was no matter how bad they'd had their little start in life, they were still friendly and gentle. There was no aggression or anything about them. They were just forlorn in a way, and it was just so sad to see. I went to the vets with her for a few times because she was in a bit of a state and so she needed quite a bit of treatment. But after a few weeks of vet treatment, she was okay to come home, so I brought her back to the UK in a van. What I'm trying to get to is that I don't think maybe I saved her, but she saved me too. At the time, I was starting to become very lonely, and I don't know, I was just so confused. I didn't know where I was going from that point. But after bringing her back, my life changed quite a bit. She she gave me a great deal of comfort and actually a new purpose. There's something very therapeutic about a dog and a bond with a dog. She really helped me to recover. I no longer felt lonely. My stress was lifting. I started going out and about. I mean, the strange thing was because she was quite thin when she got here, I sent a message around to all of my neighbours to say, oh, I've just got a new dog from Spain, and please don't think I'm mistreating her because she does look rather skinny. So if you see me walking out with her and you see this skinny little dog, please don't think she's being mistreated in any way. And the funny thing is, all the neighbours were really on board, and they they said, "Oh, great, good on you. That's really nice of you." So it's not just me. I mean, the general British people feel for dogs. They thought it was a lovely story. They thought that, the feelings towards dogs, it wasn't a case of, oh, okay, great then. They actually came and spoke to me. They came over when I went out. They came over and saw my dog, greeted my dog, and you could see that the affection was genuine. The way British people love dogs, and the way they thought that I was actually doing a good thing. I mean, I didn't really think, I didn't go out my way to do a good thing. It wasn't anything out of charity. I just saw this dog on the website, and just something just appealed to me, and I just took it from there. I mean, whether it's, something they say was meant to be, you was meant to meet, I don't know. But British people have an affinity towards dogs. And anyway, I took her out for a walk, and from being lonely for the first few months of moving to this place, I virtually spoke to nobody. I was in the house. I was spending all my time on the computer trying to figure out where I can get work from. I was getting desperate, running out of money, using my credit card, and it was quite a depressing time. But after time spent with my dog and getting to know her, going out, I was meeting so many more people out there, more dog walkers, more dog lovers, and it just opened up my social life once again. She's changed my life. Not only has she increased my social network, she is just so entertaining. The fact that, well, here's another thing as well. For the health side of things, you really need to go out 2 or 3 times a day. So the health benefits aside are brilliant. And yep, she'd come back in to take another drink. And am I disturbing you, eh? Have I disturbed you? What are you doing? Okay. So I know from a personal level how important she is to me. I mean, you do see things discussed about them being therapy dogs, and there are people who say, well, this is nonsense. It isn't. They really do change your life. They really do help you. I mean, she has completely taken away my loneliness. She's increased my social circle. I feel a lot happier for it. Each time I go out now with her, I know I'm going to meet people. My walk that maybe should take an hour might take 2 hours. The amount of people we stop, bump into, talk to, and the dogs just have a great time playing. I mean, they're so entertaining. The things they get up to as well on a day-to-day basis, they never fail to amuse you, the little things they get up to. And all dogs, all the different shapes, all the different sizes, all the different characters. Before, I mean, people who've never had a dog, they're missing out on an amazing experience. They really are. And this is why this article from the BBC, it's upset me so much. I can't believe that something with the label British Broadcasting Company, something with the word British in it, is so non-British. It just makes no sense whatsoever. There's nothing British about that. There's nothing British about saying to people, maybe we care for dogs too much. What comes next? What else is on the agenda? They decide to throw in a token. Oh, one lady was frightened to go out because of her fear of dogs. Now, the thing is, in this country, there's more people frightened of spiders than people frightened of dogs. But we don't see campaigns, anti-spider campaigns, for example. Now, when it comes to a point where they're actually trying to tell British people that you've got to stop being a dog lover, it's a step too far, I think.